Okay, guys, I'm a little bit annoyed. I just recorded this entire thing and realized that I did not click the record button. So, if I'm quick and to the point and I'm done, like speaking very quickly, like it's because I'm annoyed and want to be done because I've already done this twice now. So, today, respect for our own life and the lives of others. Three questions that you need to answer in your questions. Unit 7 questions. What are sins against one's physical self? What are sins against respect for the lives of others? How should we treat enemies? So, we are going to very quickly talk about sins against ourselves, sins against the integrity of who we are. The first one we're going to talk about is suicide, right? Suicide is the direct killing of oneself, right? And when we talk about suicide, um, is it a serious matter capable of being a mortal sin? The answer is yes, right? It's a really. I hope you heard my stupid phone just. Mm, it's been that type of day. Thank you, Siri, for being useless as always. Um, is it a violation? Is suicide a violation of the fifth commandment? Yeah, it can be, right? So, case in point, Judas, right? Did Judas go to hell for committing suicide? I mean, it's a relevant, real question to ask. But the answer is we have no idea, right? Because we can't know Judas's inner disposition. When he carried out his act of suicide, like, we don't know if he committed a mortal sin. And what we can say in general, do people in general commit a mortal sin in suicide? And we can't speak in generalities. We can't know, right? We can never know the interior disposition of a person, including whether they repent at the last moment. So we always have to have hope. And that hope is important because when it comes to committing suicide, what we see time and again, if the person commits suicide freely and knowingly, they're most likely doing so from a sin associated with hope, right? The sin of despair, a lack of hope. And so, how do we counteract that? Well, we hold out hope that whoever has committed suicide, um, didn't commit a mortal sin, that their interior disposition, that they repented, right? And one of the things that we definitely need to keep in mind when it comes to suicide is the prevalence of mental illness in terms of people who commit suicide. Right? We can certainly have hope for a mentally ill person who takes their own life because it is very possible that that their ability to reason is impaired in some way. Their will is overcome with compulsions that they can't control, right? In other words, can they commit a mortal sin in that situation? The answer is no. Okay. So sin against the integrity of the person. Number one, suicide. Number two, and this is one I would imagine most of you are not that familiar with, and I want to be clear. Uh, when I talk about this, I'm talking about a disordered attachment. Okay, disordered, not ordered to your good, right? But you might think it is, but it's not. So when we talk about the cult of the body, right? First and foremost, it is absolutely 100% legitimate and good to enhance your appearance, to want to look good, to want to make your corpus, the body, be the best version of itself that it can be. Okay? However, it becomes disordered. It becomes an inordinate attachment when it becomes the thing, the end that has become your main goal, right? Wanting to look good and feel good so that you have a long life so you can do good for others, that's ordered. Wanting to look good so that everybody looks at you because you want to look pretty and feel good about yourself because it makes you feel good about yourself, that's disordered, right? What's the purpose of wanting to feel good about yourself because others think you look good if you're a horrible human being, right? So excessive, right? We're talking about excessive, extreme food deprivation, body piercings, and tattooing. And again, I don't mean you get like 5 or 6 tattoos or 1 or 2 or whatever, or piercings or whatever. I mean like you cover your body in tattoos, you cover your ears and body and nose and whatever part of your body in piercings, etc., because that becomes who you are. Anytime something about us becomes us, that's when we run into a problem, right? Anytime that stuff that is a part of who we are becomes who we are, that's the type of inordinate attachment we're talking about with cult of the body, okay? Essentially, you are making this, the corpus, your end, right? But that's not our end, right? We are a body and soul unity, right? We're both of those things. And those two things make us us, and we have to work on both of them. And if we are the cult of the body, we're only focusing on one, right? One of those things. Gluttony, right? Gluttony, overindulgence in food. So the problem with overindulgence in food is that it changes the purpose of eating, right? Eating is not an end, right? But when you are gluttonous, eating becomes the end. It becomes what you do. But eating leads to an end. Eating, the purpose of eating is to fuel the body so the body can go out and do good, be good for yourself, for others, most importantly, for God. Okay? The purpose of eating is to fuel the body. Period, the end. But when eating becomes the end itself, that's disordered and sinful, a violation of the fifth commandment. Finally, substance abuse. Okay? Substance abuse, we're talking about the use of illicit drugs, overindulgence in alcohol. And when I say overindulgence, I mean drinking to the point of intoxication, loss of self-control, loss of ability to reason. Those two things, right? Loss of self-control or free will, lack of the ability to reason, those are two great gifts that make you human, right? And to seriously give those up, right? To give those up is a serious violation of the fifth commandment. To choose to do those things is a serious violation of the fifth commandment, not to mention the many harmful consequences that it can lead to. Now, if you would like to kind of find some kind of excuse or reason to justify your use of drugs or alcohol, that's on you. I'm telling you, particularly when it comes to illegal drugs, you shouldn't use them because mind-altering stuff is not good for you. Your head is a great gift. Your ability to reason and think is a great gift, right? And the same is true for intoxication. Now, is drinking a beer or drinking a glass of wine a sin against the fifth commandment? Again, the intention behind it. Are you doing it with the intention of getting drunk? Then yeah, it's sinful. But if you're drinking it to be social and have food and have good time with your friends, that's not the end at that point. That's not the intention behind it. However, it can morph into that if you're not careful. So it's always important to be very careful when using alcohol. And there are better, safer ways to have fun with friends. Okay? So I'm by no means endorsing the use of alcohol, but I'm certainly saying overindulgence and intending to get drunk is sinful. Okay? Last thing that we're going to talk about really quickly. So we've talked about respect for our personal selves. Now we're going to talk about respect for the lives of others. I'm going to very quickly mention one that you can give me the name of in the comments below. The first person to do so will get 5 extra credit points on their test. So this is paying attention to the people that 9 minutes in were paying attention and can get themselves some extra credit. Your textbook uses the term omission of service. If you keep paying attention, I'm going to use a different term that you should be familiar with, which means the same thing as omission of service. And if you write down the other name below, 5 points. Right? So most of you, when you think of the fifth commandment, all the stuff I mentioned so far, you're probably saying, wait, how's that a violation of the fifth commandment? The stuff I'm about to mention in terms of violations of the lives of others, probably a little bit more kind of to the point. Although I'd say probably many of you thought suicide is a violation of the fifth commandment. Gluttony, cult of the body, substance abuse, maybe not, right? The first one I'm going to mention for respect for the life of others, I would imagine most of you are probably like, obviously this is a violation, and that's murder. Murder is the termination of the life of another violently. And yeah, it's going to be a violation of the fifth commandment. It shows a lack of respect for others. Violence itself, right? Injuring another short of killing is a violation of the fifth commandment, right? So committing acts of violence, injuring another short of killing, not in defense, and we'll get to justifiable use of force, justifiable use of killing a little bit later on, but use of violence is always something that should be avoided and a violation of the fifth commandment. Not necessarily always a grave violation, but always a violation of the fifth commandment. And our call, the positive kind of context of this commandment to love, right? To love, respect, neighbor, self. Anger, right? Again, we look to Christ. He elevates this commandment and asks us to go beyond that bare minimum. Yay, I didn't kill anybody today. Hooray. Yeah, woohoo, right? But he asks us to go beyond that and remove anger from our hearts, right? And that's consenting to angry emotions towards others. It's committing murder in your heart, right? It's willing bad on others, or at least hatred is willing evil to befall others. So we have murder, violence, anger, hatred, right? Anger, again, consenting to those angry emotions toward another. Hatred is actually willing evil to befall that other person. Abusive language, right? I think we sometimes think that when we talk about violence, we just mean physical violence. But violence takes many forms: spiritual, emotional, verbal, right? So abusive language is verbal violence, right? It's calling someone bad names. It's wishing them ill. It's spitting what we would call invectives, right? That's angry words of hatred towards others. Violations of the fifth commandment. Resentment, right? Now, I'm sure some of you know what that word means. Some of you probably don't, but we've all probably felt it, right? Resentment is when you have good cause to be angry with somebody. It is consenting to bad feelings toward another person for an injury or insult, whether real or perceived, doesn't really matter. It is you grasping on to that slight, that injury that they've given you, and using it to grow more and more angry, right? That's resentment. Racism. Racism is a lack of respect, right? What is this commandment calling us to do? Love and respect the people around us. And it's a lack of respect on another person based solely on their appearance or their ethnicity. So color of skin, ethnicity, etc. Racism takes many different forms, but all of them are violations of the fifth commandment. So that thing that you're looking for extra credit, omission of service, right? It's a failure to treat an enemy or oppressor with love, right? Forgetting that everyone has human dignity and is a child of God. So omission of service is when we forget that the people we encounter, whether they are, the person on the street, Osama bin Laden, whomever, is a child of God, and we're called to treat them with respect and dignity and love. So that's failure to treat an enemy or oppressor with love. Revenge or vindictiveness, inflicting harm on someone for harm. It's related to resentment, right? So it goes beyond just holding anger in your heart at them because of a perceived wrong that they've done. Now it's actually committing anger, violence against that person because of the anger that you have for them. So resentment and revenge or vindictiveness. So when we talk about that failure to treat an enemy or oppressor with love, and we talk about a mission of service, we're really talking about a failure to carry out the corporal and spiritual works of mercy, right? To see the person on the street that has no food and to give them food, the person without shelter and to give them shelter, without clothes to give them clothes. So the next time you do that, understand it may not be a grave sin necessarily, although it can be, but it is certainly a violation of the fifth commandment. It is not living up to the intention that we're called to live up to when it comes to the fifth commandment. So be mindful and try and treat your fellow human beings with the love, respect, and dignity that they deserve. And now you have some idea of some of the violations that we can commit against it. So hopefully you watch the whole thing. Hopefully you can write down an answer at the bottom and get yourself some extra credit. And I will see you guys on Wednesday. Have a great evening.